Ray Wallace podcast, powered by Outkick.com, as we head into the college football playoff semifinals. Happy to be joined by my buddy, colleague, Barrett Lee. What up, brother?
Not much, man. I hear you're going to the cold. I'm going to sunny South Florida to cover the Orange Bowl. So I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna lie. I will send you pictures from the beach and pictures of the sun and screenshots of the temperature. Just because I'm a jerk.
It's such a it is a royal pain in the ass when I booked Cotton Bowl and I was like, we'll be good. It's Dallas. Not worried about it. All of a sudden, winter storm, 3 to 6 inches of snow.
Dallas can handle that too, right?
Right. And I even went back last night and I was looking up videos from last year's ice storm in Dallas, and it's great. Like the interstates are just
it's going to be phenomenal
mess. And so I'm like, okay, all right, this is going to be interesting. I think, so I got a comment from a Cotton Bowl rep, but in talking with some folks, it's what could you do if you got 4 inches of snow and whatnot, and there's ice on the roads and people trying to travel to the game on Friday? It's you really can't push it.
Do anything.
You can't push it back because also, you could, I guess, but at the same time, I'm looking at it right now, it's so you've got, the NFL on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, look, I think you would have to play it Monday, and then you might have to push the national championship game back.
Right. Well, yeah.
Because Lord knows the Falcons don't need the stadium.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
So
you could push it back 2 days. I know it does, but I think it helps if they wanted to. And I'm not saying this is going to happen. I have no idea because all the meteorologists that I've spoken with in the Dallas area, they're we don't know yet. We think we're going to get a good amount of snow, which will be some ice and blah blah blah. But then Saturday, I think the best thing for the college football playoff is sure the NFL is playing, but ESPN's not broadcasting any of those games.
Yeah.
But you could do a game at 1 o'clock on a Saturday.
Sure.
Sure. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to fly to Dallas, and
you might not ever come back.
But we're going to see how.
Although I might get stuck in Fort Lauderdale because we're getting ice here at Atlanta. So I'm fully anticipating spending the night in Fort Lauderdale on Friday night, which would mean that I go to that giant guitar Hard Rock Casino, which I'm very excited about.
Right, exactly. Since that's what you like to do. I'm not going to lie. I do it too. If there's a casino nearby where I'm going to go at least play an hour's worth of blackjack and have a little fun.
Attaboy.
It's easy as that. I remember shooting you the text message in the South Bend area. Hey, how'd you do? Oh, I got out ahead. I was like, all right, I'm in.
It was nice.
I know. Barrett, when we look back, buddy, at what we saw previous round CFP, your biggest takeaway as we go into the semifinals, coming off Ohio State just beating the hell, out of Oregon. That Texas-Arizona State game was a thriller. I think Arizona State could have capitalized on a couple things and probably won that football game, in the fourth quarter. But the way that we look at it right now, and even Penn State and whatnot and what they did against Boise. But what was your biggest takeaway from the previous round?
My biggest one is that I say SEC speed as in the definition of it 10 years ago. I live in Georgia. You live in Tennessee. The SEC teams and fan base, they like to think they have bigger, faster, stronger athletes. Notre Dame's right there. But they're right there. That poor Georgia offensive line had absolutely no chance against those guys. And that was without perhaps their best defensive lineman in Riley Mills. So I think Notre Dame is not just a cute little story. Notre Dame is not a pushover. Notre Dame should not be judged by what happened in week 2 of the season. What happened against Georgia is the true Notre Dame. That's the identity. They are effective offensively. They don't get creative when they don't need to. And that's exactly what happened. I don't care that Riley Leonard didn't throw for 100 yards. He didn't need to. No. And Marcus Freeman is very smart by not asking him to do that, because why change from what's working? And that team's scary. And I think Penn State knows that. And then on Ohio State's side, just a team on a mission. It's easy to see that, but say that, but the talent's always been there. And I think Chip Kelly is to blame for what happened against Michigan basically just forgetting that his 2-star receivers even exist. I don't know why anybody.
Where's Jeremiah?
That's a good idea, exactly. And so now it feels like Chip Kelly, and it's hard for him to do this. Maybe has taken responsibility for that and made the proper adjustments. So that Ohio State, like I don't think anybody questioned their ceiling.
No,
but I think now we all recognize that, man, they are on it. Like they have reached that point, and unless they shoot themselves in the foot, they're going to have a pretty easy path to the national championship.
I was right there watching them beat the hell out of Tennessee, and I'm like, all right, you're going to go up against Oregon. Oregon's offense. Let's see what happens here. But I mean, they didn't give them a chance. They came out and did the same thing to Oregon as they did to Tennessee. They beat them into submission in the first quarter, and Oregon could never respond. And so I look at this darn Ohio State team and talking with a couple other coaches, that are out there now. And they're like, okay, yeah. If you go back and look at the first Oregon game, like they were doing this.
They were fine. Yeah.
Right. And then you get judged on the Michigan thing. And I get that part of it. I understand it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, this Ohio State team's badass. Like they had a bad game. They had a bad offensive play calling game. Like that.
And that's okay. It happens. It happens.
Right.
And I think one thing that really stands out to me is that against Michigan, the play calling was bad, but so was the offensive line. And now, granted, that was against Michigan, and you can say whatever we want about Michigan's offense, but their defensive front is really, really good. But the offensive line it flipped a switch because, I mean, look, we know, you and I both know, you especially, that Tennessee's defensive front is really, really good too. They had no shot against Ohio State's offense because apparently in the 2 weeks between Michigan and Tennessee, they found the answer. And they didn't have, even before the Michigan game, it was still kind of sketchy, right? And now I think it's abundantly clear that whatever issues they had have been solved. And that, I think, was sort of the remaining puzzle piece. And that's why you saw Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson just breaking off, 5, 6, 7-yard carries consistently against Oregon. And, Will Howard can add to that, but it's sort of like Notre Dame. They don't really ask him to all that much. Yep. And I think that shows humility, which not many coaches have in this day and age, because generally speaking, they are narcissists.
Hey, what's that say about Georgia in that loss? Like, I mean, there's 15 different storylines you can come out of that game with. Rushing the football, Gunnar Stockton. Yeah. Okay, he was decent at times, but it just felt like, they just got rampaged by the Notre Dame speed on the defensive side. As we both wrote about and talked about. But is there a worrisome factor when it comes to Georgia moving forward with this?
Yeah, I think so because of Mike Bobo. And, there's always been that joke of run the dang ball, Bobo. And, he's been there for, total of 12 years as an offensive coordinator with a stint as a head coach and then some offensive coordinator roles at Auburn and South Carolina mixed in between. But it was him. I think there were a couple factors at play. One, the offensive line was not prepared for Notre Dame. That shouldn't happen. It just simply should not happen. Two, they didn't realize that. But I think above all else, they really tried to make Trevor Etienne a 1A back. And he just wasn't that. He has never been that.
I'm looking at his stats. I agree.
Yeah, he's not a 1A back. And Nate Frazier's sitting there the whole time. And every time Nate Frazier gets the ball, he does something big. But I think he only got, 6 carries in that game? 4-6 carries, something like that? Yeah. That's not acceptable. It's stubbornness. And that's been Mike Bobo's problem his entire career, both as an assistant and as a head coach. And I think the fact that he's remaining on staff, that's a concern. That's a concern because, look, the reason Carson Beck was a liability this year at times was because Mike Bobo decided he wanted to throw Carson out of a funk. You can't do that.
Right.
He's done that consistently throughout his career. So, yeah, there are some issues. There are some concerns because